I don't even think twice about it. If I have an itch at the top of my head, I'll reach my foot up just like this and scratch the top of my head.
Hey there, and welcome to Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast here on YouTube. I just had the good fortune of interviewing another high achiever. If you follow me on my podcast on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, you know that I regularly interview high achievers from all types of backgrounds, whether it be business or being an author, or maybe it's just something inspirational. But I got to tell you, I just had a great interview with Jessica Cox, and I'm excited to share it with you. You see, Jessica was born without arms, and she learned to do everything with her feet. In fact, it's unbelievable. She has great penmanship with her feet. In fact, she told me in the interview, and I'm not going to get too into it, but you're going to find out here pretty soon. She types with her toes. In fact, in the interview, she picked up her phone with one foot and started to make a mental note by typing a message on her phone with her other foot.
I'm going to text that to myself right now so you can see how I do that too.
Can I show this? Is that okay to show this? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just texting with my toes.
It's just unbelievable. You see, Jessica has gone on to be a success in her own right. And you know what? She's gone on to actually be the first female pilot to fly and be a certified pilot without arms. She does it all with her legs and her feet. It's just really cool to see how she has made her dreams come true and how she has learned to thrive despite not having arms. It's just unbelievable. She has a great attitude, and she's going to share some thoughts around mindset and around possibility thinking, and I want you to hear it. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the interview. So Jessica, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on.
You betcha. It's a pleasure to get to know you. I had a little connection with you from one of my associates down at VidCom, and he heard you, I think, speak, and he said, oh my gosh, you have got to interview this Jessica. And so I've had a great time over the last couple of weeks watching your videos and so forth. So what I thought I would do, I think it'd be really valuable. One of the things we do with a lot of our interviews is we like to get the backstory, a little bit of the history. So if you don't mind just telling us your story.
Well, I guess we could start with the fact that I was born without both of my arms. And since day one, my feet, my legs have basically become my hands and my arms. And I don't even think twice about it. If I have an itch at the top of my head, I'll reach my foot up just like this and scratch the top of my head. This is my normal. And so I went through life with that being my normal in I guess, two-handed world, so to speak. It was that in itself was more of the challenge, was more of the societal challenges of dealing with having this difference. And I don't even look at it as a disability. I don't see it as a handicap. My dad has said since the beginning, he has never once shed a tear about my birth condition. He never saw me as a victim. And so I didn't have that choice to see myself as a victim. And I went through life using resources, finding a way to live life through my feet. And I went on to college. I went on to get a pilot certificate as the world's first armless pilot. I drive an unmodified car with a regular driver's license. I scuba dive. I'm certified to scuba dive. I've surfed. And now I'm practicing slacklining. So nothing ever deters me.
Oh, that's really cool. So I'm wondering, when you were young, first of all, where did you grow up? Do you mind me asking?
I grew up in southern Arizona in a little small town called Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Okay, awesome. So when you went to school, what kind of experiences did you run into with other kids and those kinds of things? And then how did you react to it and respond to it?
It might sound strange, but using my feet to go through the world and participate fully really wasn't the challenge. The challenge was interacting with people about my difference, was society's reaction to my difference. When I went to elementary school for the first couple years, I was terribly shy because I wasn't confident in my difference. And I was always constantly reminded that I was different by kids staring, kids picking on me, kids wanting to overhelp me or doubts of what I could actually do. I was even prevented from climbing up the playground slide because they were afraid I would get hurt. But I wanted to be like all the other kids. I wanted to run up that slide and climb up the slide and swing across the monkey bars in my own way. But it was hard for people to really trust that my own way of doing things was safe and was okay.
So mentally, how did you respond to that? I mean, when people overhelped you or didn't think you could do something or prevented you from going down the slide or whatever, how did you respond? Because I imagine most kids, right, could take that pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. And some kids, you hear about kids who are different and go home and cry or go through depression and things like that. But everyone deals with it differently. Right. And for me, I dealt with it with anger and frustration. In fact, it was almost like anger was building up inside me. And my mom would tell me how I threw tantrums beyond the typical age of a child who would throw tantrums. I threw tantrums, I was angry, and the moment someone told me you couldn't do something, I would do it.
Oh, there we go. There's the secret sauce right there, is deciding. I did some research a number of years ago around a guy by the name of Joseph Murphy, and he was born with one leg, and he always wanted to play football, and they allowed him in high school to play football on that one leg because they won't allow prosthetics or anything like that on the field. And so he played, and he became an all-state lineman. In fact, the local newspaper said he could run so smooth on that one leg, you couldn't even realize that he was missing the leg. And this is what he said that I think stood out the most when I researched him a little bit. He said, and it's kind of what I hear in your voice, he said, "My mind told me I could do it, and I just did it." Anyway, it's awesome.
That is so true. It's almost like when someone tells you you can't and your mind tells you you can, it gives you all the more reason to do it because you believed you could do it and almost you had to prove it to other people.
No, that's cool stuff. So you went through school, you got through that, and then you ended up going to college.
I jumped right into college thinking that I was going to become a doctor. I took all the pre-med classes. There was never a question of how I could be a doctor without arms. I figured out I'd probably find someone to manufacture some special gloves for my feet.
Right.
And it was never really a question if I could pursue the medical field. And I was about 2 years into college, decided that I wanted to try out some psychology classes.
Yeah.
Once I had a taste of psychology, I was hooked about how much credit is given to the way we think and how much credit is, determines our behavior. And that type of stuff that I was learning in psychology really drew me in to find a career after college that would apply this psychology in a wonderful way. So I took psychology and communication.
Okay, awesome. And you do great at that, by the way. So you're a motivational speaker now, I'm assuming. Do you still do anything in the way of maybe the psychology side of things other than the speaking and the different inspirational things that you do now?
I do some mentoring one-on-one with many children who were born without their arms. Got it. Okay. And of course, always using psychology to help counsel them, to encourage them, and to be a mentor to them.
That's great. What kind of feedback do you get as you travel and you speak? I mean, what do you think inspires people the most with your message?
Well, for one, when I leave the United States, I've now spoken in 23 countries.
Oh, wow.
And I've been in places where they don't speak English, so there's a translation booth in the back of the room, and they're translating for many of the people in the audience. And when I leave this country, it is incredible how I'm received in other countries because it's unfathomable that a woman with what they would consider a disability, a handicap, could achieve so much. And it really brings awareness to many of the people in that country that if someone is given an opportunity, there's really no telling what they can achieve.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, the truth is people with disabilities don't have those opportunities in other parts of the world.
I could totally see that. So that's got to be really inspirational to them to say it's possible, right?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. So what are some things that you've done lately that has been pretty cool? I'm just curious.
Well, let's see. This past weekend was the celebration of the disappearance of Amelia Earhart.
Oh, yeah.
I had a real neat opportunity to go to her home, her childhood home, and to receive an award in her name. And that was such a treat to be able to go to Atchison, Kansas, in her hometown, and hear a little bit more about Amelia Earhart.
Wow.
I've had some opportunities. Yeah, that was really neat.
That's way cool. And let me just say for the audience, you mentioned it in the beginning that you were the first female flyer without arms, right? I don't know what the right wording is for that, but anyway, you were the first one to do that. And I watched a YouTube video on you flying that little airplane or prop plane or whatever it is, and just blows my mind about how fluid and how natural you look. I mean, it's just unbelievable what limitations some put on themselves, and you've just broken those barriers.
I want to share this quote because I think it's funny how you brought that up. It's the quote that the human body can do anything. It's the mind that takes convincing.
Oh, I like that.
The human body can do just about anything. It's the mind that takes convincing.
That's really good. And we hear with the athletes, right? High level athletes, that they always say 90% of it's the thinking, right? And so you got to get the thinking right. So that was pretty cool to go down last weekend with Amelia Earhart in her home, and knowing that you're a flyer. And did you learn anything new while you were down there? Was there anything that stood out that maybe you weren't aware of being there?
Well, one thing that Amelia Earhart taught me after this weekend is that if there was anything that ever fascinated her, she just went out and did it. And I think that's such a powerful message for anyone, is that if there's anything that interests you, that fascinates you in any way, just go out and do it.
So I'm unfamiliar with this, and if this is personal, you don't need to share it. But do you have children?
I do not have children at the moment. My husband and I will hope to be blessed with children at some point in time when it's appropriate. So yeah,
No.
Even if there were any inhibitions about flying a plane, so I don't see there being a challenge. I think I'll just work through how to be a mom without arms.
I think you'll be a great mom. Anyway, you have a great attitude. So what are some things that maybe give the audience, especially those that are just listening to the podcast, right? What are some things that you had to learn? Like, I saw one video of you signing your name with your toes. When you were in college, did you do all your writing? I mean, I'm assuming you had to. You didn't speak into a device or anything. Did you do all your writing and so forth with your toes and feet?
I actually did not make use of voice activation until later, past college. Through all my years in college, I was having to, I wouldn't say hand write. I had to foot write out all my notes, take all my tests with my foot and using a pencil or pen. And it was as natural as it would be for the average college student, I would say.
Yeah, I would imagine me trying to write, well, if I'm hearing you correctly, write with my toes, it would be a mess. But what I'm hearing you say is, no, TJ, if you did it enough, you would become very proficient at it. Because I looked at some of your writing on one of the videos. I don't remember which one it was. And by the way, everyone should go to your YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel again? It's
Toe Talks and Right-Footed Woman.
And Right-Footed Woman. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Toe Talks and Right-Footed Woman. Just really inspirational stuff. What are some of your goals that you're moving toward right now? Anything new on the horizon that you want to accomplish?
I am always challenging myself with something new. Right at the moment, I'm working on something called slacklining, and it's like tightrope walking, but it's on a slack line. So it's not as stiff as a tightrope, and you're learning to use balance and focus to get across a line without falling off the line, of course. And eventually you progress to what's called highlining, and you're over a canyon or you're over a body of water, and you are harnessed in if you do fall off for any reason, but it is really a true test of balance and focus. And I wanted to try this out because so many people thought, well, how do we balance?
Yeah.
Most people have their arms out, right, and they have their arms balancing them. So I figured there'd be a way that I have learned to adapt to balancing without arms. And I am a more balanced person. Most people tell me that I can stand on one leg more for a longer period of time than they could. So for me, balance is come out of necessity. And I thought, what better way to test out my balance than to try some slacklining?
And so, have you done it yet? Have you done the slacklining yet, or is this is a whole new thing you're gonna try out?
I've done it. I can cross a slack line up to 30 feet, but right now I need to work on bringing up the height of the slack line.
Is the slack line the thing that line that they pull between maybe two trees? It's about typically what I see is maybe 2 or 3 feet off, 4 feet maybe off the ground, and you try to walk across. Is that what it is?
That's it.
Okay,
yes.
so let me just say for the record, I tried that once. And I have a bad attitude around it, right? Because I fell off after 2 steps. I couldn't do it. Anyway, it's just it seemed really hard to me.
Give it some more time. You'll be surprised.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't wait to see more and hear more about this as we go forward. So are pretty much all your activities that you do, sounds like you're pretty self-sufficient. You've learned to pretty much do everything with your toes and your feet.
I have to be completely honest with you, TJ. Some of the things that most people take for granted take me still a little bit more time.
Sure.
Take, for example, getting ready in the morning. Finding the process of getting my pants on took 18 years, which was longer than it took to learn how to fly a plane. So some of these smaller things take me a little longer. So I always have to plan out in my schedule in the morning a little bit more time, because for me, using my legs and feet, it's not as fast as using someone's hands to get ready.
That could be frustrating.
It can, yeah, the small things.
Yeah, oh, the small things. Yeah, absolutely. So I noticed on one of the videos that you use, a hook to help put on some of your clothing. Is that the same to put on your clothing? So is that the same process you used as a young girl, or did you change over time? How did you evolve to that? As you say, 18 years of learning how to put on some of these things?
Well, for one, the dressing hook that I use to this day is essentially a windshield repairman's tool. It has a suction cup on it, so I suction this onto a wall. And on the hook, I just hang my clothing, step into my clothing, and wiggle my way in. But before that, at the beginning stages, we thought that Velcro would work, to have a piece of Velcro on the wall and then put Velcro on my clothing so that I can essentially Velcro my clothing to the wall, step into my clothing, and wiggle my way in. That wasn't the best thing to do because the Velcro tend to tear your clothing and it just didn't always work out. So we progressed to another hook, which was almost like a coat hook you'd use on the back of your door to hang a coat or something. We took that off. My dad put it on a slab of wood. He nailed that to the wall. And the problem with that is that it's not possible to bring that with me when I go to public places. So I need something that I could transport with me. And that's why the suction hook that I've been using now for many, many years, and I share this with many other people who are figuring out ways of getting dressed, it works well. I bring it in my bag and I can suction it on a wall anywhere I'm at, and I need to get my clothes on. It works like a charm.
That's unbelievable. So what I'm hearing is there's not probably a lot of products out there available. So you're having to innovate all the time, different aspects and things to run your life, essentially. Tools
and repurposing things to make them work for you. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, sounds like it. And so as a young girl, did your parents, did they expect you to figure some of these things out on your own, knowing that someday you would grow up and you'd have to figure it out on your own? How did they work with you with this challenge of not having arms, if you will?
Well, for me, I always share with parents the importance of tough love. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, though we watch children struggle, whatever it is that they're doing, it's important to give them that space so that they can struggle and figure it out. And I was fortunate that I was given my space so that I could figure out how I could be independent. Because one day I would want to be independent. And that's something that pushes me along, is that desire to be an independent person. And so my parents gave me the space I needed. They provided the support and the resources I needed, or if I needed something, they were there to help me. But they knew that I needed to figure it out, and they had to give me that space. And I feel blessed that I had wonderful parents who not only emotionally encouraged me, but they really did push me along with my goals and what I needed to achieve.
Well, that's really great. Okay, so let's wind this down a little bit. And as you're out doing your speaking and so forth, what are some of the key principles that you share to inspire your audiences? What are some of the core messages to my audience, for example, that you would want to get across in a nutshell?
I have the saying, think outside the shoe. And the reason I use that saying is because when I was in kindergarten learning to tie my shoes, unlike everyone else in my class, I had to have my feet outside the shoe in order to tie the laces. Because the moment my foot was inside the shoe, it would limit access to those toes that I need to tie the laces. So unlike everyone else, I had my feet out of the shoe, took the laces, made the bunny ears, tied the bow, and then I slipped my foot inside the shoe. And that's where I came up with the saying, think outside the shoe. Using that creativity, sitting back and seeing the challenge from a different perspective was something that was critical for me in my life. And now I share that with audiences, the importance for them to think outside the shoe in their own life. I use the acronym SHOE, SHOE, for its self-limiting beliefs, habits, overcomplication, and excuses. And sometimes we allow those to rule our life, but we have to think outside of those to be able to be successful at what we want to achieve.
Wow. Wow. That's really well said. Unleash your greatness within, right? Everybody's got it. No matter kind of what your circumstances are, you have so much, there's that old saying that we only use less than 10% of our brain. And I don't know that I agree. I think we use a lot less than that. We have so much power, but here's the reality. We do use less than our natural potential. And we don't realize that we even have that potential until we're kind of backed up into a corner in some circumstances where I know that in my own life and achieving some of my goals, some of my biggest breakthroughs have been when I have been in my darkest moment or forced to the corner and just figuring a way out. Necessity helped drive me, necessity plus inspiration, right? And you are a great example of just showing that, hey, every one of us has more potential than we think we do. So what would you say around the concept of getting out of your comfort zone?
Sometimes it's important to get out of our comfort zones because it's when we're uncomfortable and we learn so much more. And I always encourage that from the onset of taking on any challenge or obstacle, you have to believe that it's possible. From the very beginning, you have to start on a positive note. You have to stop yourself from using the words, I can't. And you have to go through possible thinking, which is another phrase that I've coined, possible thinking, to achieve the impossible by breaking it down into smaller, achievable baby steps, baby challenges.
Oh, those are some good nuggets right there. Okay, eliminate the ugliest four-letter word I heard you say, the word can't. Eliminate it. Chunk things down into smaller, bite-sized milestones, if you will.
Exactly.
Believe it's possible. Don't give up until you succeed, essentially. Wow, that's really been great. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but I want you to know that you are an inspiration. I know those that are going to listen to this are going to want to look you up and find out more about you. What do you have anything you'd like to share with them? A website, anything that would be important for them to have?
Please go to my website, jessicacox.com. Or if it's easier to remember, rightfooted.com.
Rightfooted.com or jessicacox.com. All right. Thank you for being in this quick little interview. It was a pleasure. Is there anything else in closing that you'd like to share?
Thank you, TJ, for the opportunity and for the interview and to share my life with your audience. So glad to have done that.
You bet. Keep up the great work. Keep being an inspiration. Keep helping people unleash their greatness within and think, as you said, possibility thinking. What a great thing it is. You're a great example. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Take care.
Oh, well, that brings up a good question. Do you type your emails with your toes?
I do. I have my toes, they're memorized on the home keys. So I use my toes on the home keys like most people would have their hands on the home keys. Yeah.
Really? That just blows my mind. That's really cool. Do you have a video out on that?
I think that's a very good point. I need to do a video about that. So I'm going to do a video about how that whole process of memorizing. I mean, I went to typing class in 8th grade, like most 8th graders. They had to go to typing class.
Yeah, right. I remember. Yeah.
Mavis Beacon, you remember that program where we memorize our keys? Then I just put the keyboard on the floor, and sitting up like everyone else, I just had the keys on the floor. So maybe it was even easier to memorize it because my vision wasn't as sharp to my feet as it would.
Oh, you were forced to kind of look up and type and watch the screen as your toes would type. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That would be a cool video to see.
I'm going to write that down right now.
What's that?
I'm going to text that to myself right now so you can see how I do that too.
Can I show this? Is that okay to show this? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just texting with my toes.
You're kidding. Unbelievable. So when you were emailing me, when we were going back and forth, that was you essentially doing this right here.
Yes. Or voice activation. Sometimes I use Siri too.
Yeah. I use a lot of Siri actually. My thumb, I don't do good with my hands. So I'm always using dictation anyway. Awesome. So anyway, it's been great visiting with you. Thank you for taking the time and being gracious enough to spend some time with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for your story and your testimony too.
Yeah,
so.
You betcha. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
All right. Make it a great one. Good. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I just say I'll see you around in the speaking circuit sometime.
Sounds like a plan. Good luck on your speech tomorrow. You'll do great.
Thank you.
All righty. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.